Before I start, I'm not on TikTok, so forgive me if this is an out-of-date meme or something like that, but my friends recently put me onto a potential nickname for the LeBron-Luka Doncic duo. How do we feel about dark magic? I don't know. I like that. Just let me know how you think about dark magic down in the comment section below. But now, over the backstretch of the 2024-25 NBA season, the Los Angeles Lakers have been one of the best teams in the league. They've boasted an 18-10 record over the last 30-ish games. They've been jostling for that second seed, and obviously the catalyst for all of this was the trade for one Luka Doncic. Now, despite the immense talent Luka is, despite pretty much everyone in the world saying, okay, the Lakers robbed the Mavs, clearly the league is rigged, there actually weren't a lot of people thinking the Lakers were going to be contenders, at least in year one. Everyone thought they were going to be a dangerous team. Sure, LeBron and Luka together, like, you can't say anything less than that. But a lot of people, including me, I'll put myself in this, were worried about the LeBron and Luka fit. I knew they could fit together, but year one, right in the middle of the year, getting traded together, two ball-dominant players, I just wasn't sure they were going to coalesce offensively. And then defensively, I just didn't think this was gonna work. And I have been wrong on both accounts. Offensively, they've been pretty good. They've actually meshed together really well. The issue hasn't really been the fit. It's been more Luka hasn't really been himself for this entire stretch. And while the offense can have a video about itself in its own right, the thing I want to talk about is the defense. Because when you think about a team replacing Anthony Davis with Luka Doncic, you should rightfully think to yourself, oh no, this is going to be the worst defense in the league. And that is exactly what I and a lot of other people thought. But actually, the Lakers defense has been pretty solid. For certain stretches, they've been really, really good. And the reason they've been really, really good is not because any one player has filled the hole of Anthony Davis. Big pause. It's because the Lakers as a collective have all bought into JJ Redick and LeBron's defensive strategy. What is that defensive strategy, you may ask? Well, I could explain it to you, but why don't we just hear it from the source? Here's an episode from the Mind the Game podcast from over a year ago.
So it doesn't matter. So it has to come to a point. It's like, what are we willing to give up? Not what are we willing to stop? You can't stop great guys. You can't stop great players. You just hope they miss. But what are we willing to give up? And then you have to just tip your head. Like, these scoring outputs is insane. I wish I was back in like 2012. Right?
Isn't that crazy? Before JJ was even hired, before LeBron was even thinking about how he could get rid of Darvin Ham, LeBron and JJ were theorizing the exact defensive strategy they would use to propel this mediocre defensive roster into the top half of the league. You see, the typical good NBA defense is structured around one question. What is it that we want to stop consistently? A lot of teams think, okay, we can't give up threes. They'll allow teams to play one-on-one isolation ball without any help. They'll switch pick and rolls. They'll do everything they can physically to prevent their defense from getting into rotation and to prevent the other team from getting clean three-point looks. Other teams like the Milwaukee Bucks of old, they would do whatever they could to shut down the lane. Pure drop coverage. They would help off their man from one passer away. Do anything they could to prevent a ball handler from getting downhill and getting a good shot at the rim. Now, this defensive strategy is good if you have a lot of good defenders that can execute. The Lakers do not have that. Well, they kind of do have that, but in their optimal offensive lineup, they are kind of defensive deficient. LeBron is an okay individual defender at this stage in his career. Austin Reeves gives good effort, but he's not really a plus defender. And Luka, man, I keep seeing glimpses of him being a really solid on-ball defender, but then there's like 45 minutes of film the rest of the game where he's a literal traffic cone. So Luka's a bad defender until he consistently proves otherwise. So the Lakers can't really ask the question, what can we stop? Because honestly, they can't stop a lot if they play everything straight up. So instead, just as LeBron and JJ alluded to in the aforementioned video, the Lakers ask, what can we give up? And this typically results in one answer. The other team's worst three-point shooter taking open threes. You see, the Lakers' thinking is similar to a lot of teams where they want the other team's worst three-point shooter to take threes. The difference is a lot of teams don't pursue this strategy as aggressively as the Lakers. The way other teams guard non-shooters is, they'll give them a little bit of respect. They'll just sag off. If the player does end up shooting, they'll give kind of a weak closeout just to get an actual contest on ball. The Lakers do not do this. A lot of the time, they will completely ignore the person who they deem as the other team's worst shooter, and then they'll use that extra defender to clog the lane. So if you have a poor shooter on the floor, the Lakers are essentially playing 5-on-4, and whatever your poor shooter does, they do not care. They will take their lumps as they come. This is how they destroyed the Denver Nuggets earlier this year. Aaron Gordon is having a really solid shooting year, but the Lakers deemed Aaron Gordon as the Nuggets' worst shooter. They said, okay, you're gonna have to prove it against us. If you want to win this game, you're gonna have to shoot a bunch of open threes and make 5 or 6 of them. The Lakers bet that he couldn't do that, and he didn't. They used that extra defender to sandwich Jokic, prevent him from getting any clean entry passes, and that resulted in Jokic having maybe the worst game I've ever seen from him. I think he was 2 of 7 from the field. Absolutely putrid performance from him. Maybe the only putrid performance I've ever seen from him over the past however many seasons. Another clear example of this was their performance against the Los Angeles Clippers. Chris Dunn is a solid defender for the Clippers, not a great shooter. The Lakers completely ignore him, use that defender to double James Harden when he tries to penetrate to the lane, and that results in the Clippers having a very poor offensive showing. You combine this strategy with the Lakers' relatively high-end forward depth that allows them to switch a lot of defensive assignments, be generally amorphous, as well as a fairly attentive Luka off ball. He's pretty decent off ball. On ball is more my issues with him. But you combine that all together and you get a defense that when everything's clicking, they truly seem unstoppable. The issue is things don't always click. The Lakers are always usually fairly attentive on defense, but the aforementioned strategy that I was gushing over, that JJ and LeBron foreshadowed over a year ago, that doesn't always work. And that's because NBA players are still NBA players. Non-shooters on NBA teams are not your typical bums at the park that you don't even worry about. These are still NBA players. Jason Collins made 15 three-pointers in a row. Mitchell Robinson against your average person looks like KD on the perimeter. We've all seen the clips. NBA players still have skill. They are still capable of making an open three. So I don't care how bad the worst shooter on the opposing team is. You cannot count on them to miss their threes every single game if they're consistently given open threes. Every defense is subject to variance. The OKC Thunder are literally one of the best defenses ever. They've still gotten 130 dropped on them sometimes because some nights teams are just hot. But because of the Lakers strategy, they are even more susceptible to a hot shooting night from a certain team because they are giving NBA players open threes, no matter how bad at shooting they are. This is how the same team that had one of the best stretches of defensive basketball we've seen in the past few years can give up 150 to the Chicago Bulls and make one of the worst offenses in the league in the Orlando Magic look like they pulled Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway out of retirement. It's because this defensive strategy of the Lakers of completely giving up what they deem as the worst offensive strategy for their opponents opens them up to variance more than any other team in the league. Now, I'm gonna be honest. For most teams in the West and really in the rest of the NBA, this isn't gonna matter because I think over the course of an entire series, everything's gonna even out and the Lakers strategy is probably gonna work. The Clippers, I don't know if their best defenders are gonna be able to get on the court consistently. The T-Wolves, I will never trust playoff Randall until he proves me otherwise. The Warriors, I don't know about playoff Jimmy. Also Draymond, they're spacing together. I feel like the Lakers may have a field day using this defensive strategy against the Warriors. The Grizzlies got a whole bunch of stuff going on, and also Josh shooting isn't great. The Nuggets, they already showed you how they guard them. Although Aaron Gordon is having a great shooting season, I don't know if he's going to be able to have a 5 out of 8 three-point shooting night 4 out of 7 games in a series. Also Christian Braun, Peyton Watson, Russell Westbrook. The Rockets, Amen Thompson isn't a shooter at all at this moment in his career, and the team's shooting as a whole is lackluster. Like if you look at almost every every team in the West, can you really think that their worst offensive option is going to be able to shoot well 4 out of 7 games in a series against the Lakers? I think it's plausible, but I would say it's unlikely. And that doesn't even take into account the fact that I think most teams can't guard the Lakers. Luka as the first option distributing everything, someone who we know is a playoff proven offensive engine, and then you have LeBron James as the second option, able to survey the floor and essentially pick and choose whoever he wants to go up against. LeBron James being able to attack closeouts, that's a whole nother beast. And then Austin Reeves as the third option has been completely unlocked. All of that attention makes it hard to pay attention to Jackson Hayes, who is pretty much getting an alley-oop once every 2 possessions. Like, even if you consistently get good play out of your worst shooter and you kill the Lakers defense, I don't think most teams will be able to outscore the Lakers offense. There are 2 teams in the NBA though where none of this analysis matters: the OKC Thunder and the Boston Celtics. And that's because neither of them have any weaknesses offensively. All their players can shoot, unless the Thunder put in Isaiah Hartenstein, and in that case he isn't a perimeter player, so sagging off him doesn't really matter. Now, I'm gonna set the Thunder aside, one, because they're probably gonna be one of my next videos. I want to go into detail on why I think a lot of their weaknesses are being overblown. But the second reason I'm setting them aside is because I do think the Lakers have a chance against the Thunder. Despite LA not really having a weak link that they can exploit on defense against the Thunder, I think the Thunder have a lot of softer weaknesses that the Lakers can exploit. The experience, for one. LeBron has more collective playoff experience than some teams in the playoffs this year, and one of those teams is the OKC Thunder. Another weakness that has me a little worried about a Lakers-Thunder matchup is that the Thunder have a lot of slender 6'4", 6'5", 6'6" guys, whereas the Lakers have a lot of girth, pause, and their starting lineup has no one under 6'6". I guess Austin Reeves is 6'5", but everyone else is 6'6", 6'7", and taller. So I do think the Thunder could get out-muscled a little bit. So I'm going to set the Thunder aside, even though I think the Lakers' defensive strategy would not work on them. The Thunder have other weaknesses that I think the Lakers can exploit. The Celtics have none of these weaknesses. The Celtics are the perfect team to capitalize against the Lakers' defensive strategy, so much so that I don't know if the Lakers could get 2 games off of the Celtics, realistically. I mean, just look at the Celtics on both sides of the court. The Lakers on defense. Who are they going to leave open so that they can clog the lane? Jaylen Brown? Maybe. I don't know. That's not a bet I'd be willing to take. Drew Holiday, Derek White, Kristaps Porzingis, Al Horford, Jason Tatum. Like, the Celtics have shooter on shooter on shooter on shooter. And then when you flip sides of the court, I don't know if there's a better matchup for the Lakers defensively than the Boston Celtics. Jaylen Brown is probably the best Luka Doncic defender in the league. Jason Tatum is fine on LeBron. Drew Holiday or Derek White on Austin Reeves. You put the one that you don't have on Austin Reeves on Rui Hachimura or whoever the Lakers have in that starting position. The one thing is the Celtics don't really have a vertical lob deterrent. Kristaps kind of, just because of his pure length, but obviously he doesn't really have a great vertical at this point in his career. But I mean, if we're talking about Jackson Hayes maybe having the one advantage offensively, then we're in dire straits. And then when you just go outside of the poor matchup for the Lakers, and then you look at the softer stuff that I was giving them the edge when I was talking about them versus the Thunder, yeah, the Lakers probably have more experience in their top 2, but as a team, the Celtics have a lot more playoff experience than the Lakers do. The Lakers have a rookie head coach. The Celtics have one of the best coaches in the league who's also championship proven. The Celtics have a greater likelihood that their star players make it to the NBA Finals with relatively good health. And on top of everything, the Celtics are probably the second best duo in the league, so while I would take Luka and LeBron over Tatum and Brown, it's not by much. Definitely not by enough to make up for the rest of the roster. So there it is. I know the title is a little clickbaity. I do think the Lakers are very good. I have them as the second best team in the West. If you were to argue that they're the first team in the West, I would not argue with you that much. They have been really impressive, but I think their defense is very flawed, and because of that, I think they are going to be very vulnerable against a team like the OKC Thunder, and I think they have virtually no chance to beat a team like the Boston Celtics when they do come out of the East. So with that, thank you ladies and gentlemen for watching all the way through. We greatly appreciate it. If you enjoy this content, why don't you go ahead and like and subscribe, drop a comment down below, share the video with a friend, and as always, stay sweaty, ladies and gentlemen. Peace.